Picture this. You are 13, your body not yet sure of its own shape, standing barefoot on a slab of sun-baked clay, deep inside the ziggurat's shadow. The thick smoke of burning cedar fills your lungs. Every inhalation stings. Every breath is a reminder that this is not a place for children, even though, tonight, childhood is being taken from you. The woven reed mat beneath your feet scratches at your skin. Every whisper in the chamber, priests murmuring incantations, elders clearing their throats. The slow rhythmic beat of the temple drum lands with the weight of a final sentence. You clutch a strip of linen to your chest, knuckles pale, fingers trembling. The robe they have given you is nothing like the loose cloth you wore at home. It is tight around the shoulders, itchy with ceremonial dye, meant to mark you as sacred. But you feel exposed, caught, prepared for a ritual you have only ever overheard, in snatches from older siblings and neighbors who glance away when you meet their eyes. Sweat runs down your spine, cold despite the stifling heat. Someone is chanting your name. You thought coming of age would be a private thing. You imagined your family would be there, perhaps a feast, maybe a gift of jewelry or a woven sash. Instead, you are standing in front of the assembled elders, their faces as unmoving as baked brick. The high priestess's voice cuts through the murmurs. Child, step forward. Your feet feel heavy as stone. You take a step, then another, and suddenly you realize that this is not about you at all. It is about the city, the gods, and a tradition older than memory. You try not to look at the other figures lining the walls. Some you know, your mother, clutching her necklace so tightly the beads dig into her palm, her eyes fixed on the floor. Others are strangers, men and women in elaborate headdresses, faces painted with lapis and kohl. Their expressions are expectant, almost hungry. You know the stories. Children brought to the temple for purification, initiation, sacrifice. But the details have always been hidden, replaced with platitudes about blessings and the favor of Ishtar. A cold hand takes your shoulder. The touch is impersonal, practiced, the same way you would lift a goat for slaughter. You flinch. The priest leans down, breath sweet with date wine, and whispers, "Do not resist." Your heartbeat thunders in your ears. Somewhere in the distance, a bell rings, long and low. The ceremony has begun. They strip the robe from your shoulders. The room is silent, but for the sound of your own shivering. You are bathed in scented water, the liquid shockingly cool. The priestess recites an ancient hymn, words you barely understand. May the child be made pure in the sight of the city and the gods. You taste salt on your lips, realize you are crying, and quickly bite your tongue. To show fear is to dishonor your family. You scan the crowd for your father. He stands stiffly, arms crossed, jaw clenched. He will not meet your gaze. This is his duty too. In the city of Babylon, every family, at some point, brings a child to the temple. It is said to ensure fertility, fortune, and the favor of the gods. But no one speaks of what the ritual actually means. Tonight, you are to find out. The oldest tablets say this tradition reaches back to the time of Gilgamesh. The temple's power, the city's fate, the will of the gods, all rest on obedience to rites that none dare question. A hush falls. The high priestess takes a ceremonial knife, not for blood, but for cutting the cord of childhood. She raises it above your head. You feel the brush of her hair, perfumed with oil, as she murmurs a blessing. The cord is severed. You are no longer a child. At least, not in the eyes of the city. The crowd exhales. But what follows is far worse than anything you imagine. A table is wheeled in, covered with offerings, figs, barley, rings of silver, and, most ominous, small wooden idols carved with grotesque faces. The priestess lifts one, places it in your hands. You will offer yourself to Ishtar, she intones, as others have done before you. You have heard the phrase offering oneself before. Until now, it was just words. Now, surrounded by dozens of watchful eyes, you realize its meaning. Your body, your innocence, are about to become part of something you cannot control. Dozens of candles flicker, throwing monstrous shadows on the walls. You hear the shuffling of feet, a soft gasp as another child is led in behind you. The priests chant in Sumerian, words from a dead language, preserved only for rites like this. Let the temple receive what the city gives. Let the goddesses judge the worth of the young. The chant grows louder, almost frantic. A priest approaches with a bowl of oil, dips his fingers, anoints your forehead and chest. The scent is overwhelming. Bitter herbs, unfamiliar spices, something metallic beneath it all. Your skin tingles. The high priestess raises her hands and the room falls silent. Tonight, the gods witness the passage of innocence. Tonight, you belong to Babylon. You hear your name repeated again and again, chanted as if to summon something. The air vibrates with tension. Every instinct tells you to run, but your legs are frozen. The priestess steps forward, eyes cold, lips drawn in a line. She speaks quietly, but her words carry, "You will not leave this place as you entered. What is taken tonight will not be returned. Think you understand ancient religion? Think again." In Mesopotamia, the line between piety and power was written on children's flesh. The clay tablets that fill the libraries of Uruk and Babylon describe the purification of youth in words so sanitized you would never guess what they truly mean. In reality, these rituals were ordeals, designed not to uplift, but to break and to bind. While scholars debate the translation of sacred marriage and temple prostitution, the children of the city know the truth. There are no veils, no privacy, no gentle transitions, only the relentless machinery of the state, the temple, and the family. The gods are invoked, but it is human hands that carry out the acts. This is not myth. This is not allegory. This is the living, breathing horror of coming of age in the world's first civilization. You can taste the dread. You can smell the incense and sweat. The walls seem to close in. The ceremony is just beginning, and you have no idea what will be demanded of you next. You kneel, naked and trembling, as the scent of burning myrrh crawls into your throat. The mat beneath you is rough as straw. The high priestess's voice cuts through the smoke. You are here to be remade. The room crowds closer, their faces impassive, as if what's about to happen is no more personal than a harvest ritual. You glance at your mother, but she won't look at you. Your father's eyes are shut tight. Only the priestess watches you directly, her eyes wide and cold. A bowl of water is brought, steaming and cloudy with herbs. The priestess dips a cloth and drags it along your limbs, a cleansing, they say, but it feels more like erasure. Each stroke wipes away the last trace of your childhood, your play fights by the riverbank, your secret games with cousins, your memories of laughter that now seem to belong to another life. You want to shiver, but you do not dare move. They begin the ritual in earnest. Two temple assistants take your arms, holding you upright before the altar. You're forced to stand with your feet apart, exposed to every pair of eyes. The priestess lifts a carved wooden rod and presses it against your bare chest. She murmurs the names of the city's gods: Anu, Enlil, Ishtar. For each name she taps the rod along your skin. The sharp, cold wood leaves faint marks, lines of red that sting in the temple heat. The chants grow louder, echoing off stone walls. Now comes the first ordeal. The priestess circles behind you and in a practiced gesture fastens a cord tight around your waist. With this, your childhood is bound, she intones. The cord is so tight it bites into your flesh. Your heart pounds as you realize you are being displayed. The assembly, elders, priests, even your own kin, watch with the hunger of spectators at a spectacle. What you thought would be a blessing is nothing but exposure. The priestess calls for witnesses. Your name, your age, your family lineage. She recites your father's trade, your mother's house. Every detail is made public, and the assembled crowd nods as if to say, "This is our sacrifice." The city demands your suffering, and so you endure. But here's where it gets worse. The next phase is the purification by pain. The priestess lifts a paddle, nothing ornate, just a flat, hard board, dipped in sacred oil. You are made to kneel again, hands outstretched as the paddle falls across your palms. The pain is immediate, electric. You bite your lips so hard you taste blood. It is over quickly, but the humiliation lingers. The priestess proclaims, "Pain purges the stain of childhood. Pain brings you into the circle of adults." The congregation murmurs assent. In the back of the room, a scribe records each step on a clay tablet. Child of such and such, purified in the year of the lion, witnessed by the elders, overseen by the high priestess. You realize this moment, this pain, is not just for now. It is being inscribed into the city's permanent memory. Another child is brought in. You see him, a boy you know from the alleyways near the market. He is pale, his lips pressed thin with fear. The priestess gestures, and the ritual is repeated. Only now do you notice there are stains on the mat, traces of old blood and oil, proof that this is no singular ordeal. Every year, dozens endure this. Some don't come back the same. The next horror is the offering. The priestess gestures to the table of idols and selects one, an effigy of Ishtar, the goddess of love and war. To enter adulthood, you must offer yourself as Ishtar's servant, she says. You are led to the idol, forced to bow, and recite a chant after the priestess. Your voice cracks, she doesn't care. The words you mouth bind you to the temple. My body is the city's, my will the goddess's. There is no ambiguity in the ritual. You are not asked, you are commanded. But here's where the machinery turns cruel. The next stage is the testing of obedience. The priestess orders you to walk naked in a circle while elders observe. Every eye is sharp, judging your posture, your willingness to obey. If you falter, if you hesitate, the assistant's rod taps your legs, forcing you onward. You sense some priests are looking for any excuse to call you defiant, to prolong your humiliation. After the circle, you are ordered to kneel at the altar. This is the moment you have dreaded most. The priestess produces a scroll, a list of rules from the Code of Hammurabi itself. She reads aloud the punishments for disobedience, the banishment of those who flee, the mutilation of those who defy the temple's sexual order. You realize refusal is not an option. To resist is to lose everything: your family, your home, your very name. A murmur passes through the crowd. The priestess anoints your head once more, and without warning, pulls you close and whispers, "The next act seals your adulthood." The scribe leans forward, stylus poised to record. Your hands tremble, but you force yourself still. The ritual has not ended. The worst you sense is yet to come. And in that moment, as you kneel, burning with shame, skin stinging, muscles aching, you understand a truth you wish you'd never learned. This ritual is not about sanctity. It is about breaking you open, reshaping you, proving to the city that you are willing to be used. The city's gods demand not just sacrifice, but surrender. If witnessing this breaking, if seeing the raw machinery of ancient power and pain has left you questioning everything you thought you knew about the world's first civilization, and if you want to discover more of the secrets that history tried to bury, subscribe now. Only here will you find out what happened to those who endured these rituals, and what awaited them after the ordeal ended. The congregation disperses as the priestess prepares for the next stage. You are left alone on the mat, the oil cooling on your skin, the sounds of the city far away, knowing your old life is gone forever. But you have survived, at least for now. What comes next, they tell you, will change everything. You wake in the temple before dawn, every muscle burning, the memories of the night pressing on you like a fever. The chamber is empty except for you and the other children who survived the ritual. Some curled into themselves, silent, others staring at the painted ceiling, eyes hollow with exhaustion. The air is thick with incense, but beneath it lingers the smell of blood, oil, and tears. A temple attendant enters, carrying a tray of barley cakes and watered beer. You expect comfort, but instead, he sets the tray down with a warning. Eat quickly. The priests will come soon. The door slams shut. You realize you are not free to leave. Last night's ordeal was not a passage, but an entrance into another kind of captivity. A truth whispered in the shadows of the city, never spoken aloud in the sun. The other children move quietly, avoiding your gaze. You see marks on their bodies, red welts, bruises from the paddle, and for some, the ritual tattoo, a stylized cuneiform mark burned into the inner arm with a heated bronze stylus. You flinch at the sight. You run your fingers along your own arm and feel the raw sting of a mark you do not remember receiving. It is fresh, angry, permanent. In the temple, you now have a new name, a new identity, one chosen for you by the priests. But here is where the machinery grows monstrous. The ritual has only just begun. At sunrise, the high priestess returns, flanked by 2 priestesses in training. She surveys the room, face expressionless, and announces, "Those who showed true submission will be honored. The rest will serve in the low courts. You are made to stand as she calls names. Those called are led away, disappearing behind a heavy wooden door. You hear muffled weeping, a stifled gasp. When the priestess passes you by, you feel a pang of relief, but it is short-lived. You are herded into a larger chamber where city elders sit along the walls, records spread out before them. A scribe, his beard dusted with ash, calls each child by their new temple name, and lists their obedience, their suffering, their purification. The entries are precise, every mark and every moment of hesitation documented. You understand with cold clarity that you are being sorted and judged like livestock. Some children, the priestess announces, have shown a special aptitude. These are sent to the inner sanctum, a term that terrifies even the adults. You hear older children whisper about the naditu and kadishtu, words that mean, in the temple's language, sacred devotee, holy prostitute. Archaeological records from Old Babylon and Mari describe these roles: perpetual novices, chosen for lives of service, sometimes sexual, sometimes administrative, always under temple control. You wonder, is this to be your fate? But here's where the true horror reveals itself. The city celebrates your ordeal as a triumph. By midday, you and the others are led out into the temple courtyard. Incense and garlands hang from the columns. The market outside is bustling, and people pause to watch as you stand before the crowd. Newly marked, visibly shaken, but presented as purified. An elder, his voice booming, proclaims, "These children have given themselves to the gods." Babylon prospers. Because of their sacrifice, a feast is held. Plates of dates and roasted lamb are set before you, but your stomach twists at the sight. Every mouthful is bitter. Every cheer from the adults, a fresh humiliation. They clap your shoulders, praise your courage, but you know it is obedience they celebrate. At the feast's end, a senior priest steps forward and in front of all recites from the Code of Hammurabi, "If any child resists the temple's will, let them be banished, nameless, cast out from the gates." The message is unmistakable. Survival means acceptance. One of your peers, her name was Tilu, though the priests now call her Anaera, does not eat. She stares into space unmoving, until a priest forces a handful of barley into her mouth. Later, you see her led away by priestesses, the door slamming behind them. You will not see her again. Some children vanish after the feast, their families told only that the gods have chosen them for further service. But what you don't know is that this cycle repeats, year after year. Historical records, clay tablets excavated from the temple archives of Uruk and Sippar, show detailed lists of offerings, children's names, ages, family trades, fates. Some are recorded as naditu, their lives ending within the cloistered walls, never marrying, never returning home. Others become servants of the goddess, their tasks dictated by the priesthood, their bodies treated as property of the temple. The machinery of the temple never stops. For those not chosen for lifelong service, there is another ordeal, a second ritual weeks later to ensure obedience has taken root. Those who fail are punished publicly. The whole city is invited to witness the correction of a defiant child. The Code of Eshnunna, another ancient law code, lists punishments: exile, mutilation, even death for those who disrupt the temple's rites. The law is clear. The will of the gods supersedes the rights of the family, the individual, even the king. Yeah, but here's the final twist. One last horror hidden in plain sight. The ritual is not just a religious act, it is an economic and political institution. Temple slaves, marked like you, are traded as gifts between cities. During festivals, children are paraded in the streets, decorated, celebrated, but always watched, always owned. The city's prosperity is said to depend on these sacrifices. Archaeological evidence confirms that during times of famine or war, the number of children given to the temple spikes. The city devours its own to survive. As the sun sets, you are sent back to the dormitory. A row of stone cots, thin mats, nothing personal left. You lie awake, every sound amplified in the night. The soft sobs of other children, the shuffle of sandals in the corridor, the occasional wail of a distant animal. You realize that here in the world's oldest city, the machinery that grinds away your childhood is ancient, relentless, and perfectly normal. You stare at the cuneiform mark on your arm, red and aching. You remember the priestess's words? "You will not leave as the same person who entered." She was right. Tomorrow and every day after, you belong to the city. And as you drift into a restless sleep, you wonder which is worse, the pain you endured or the knowledge that no one, not even the gods, will save you from what comes next. The days that follow are not days at all, but a series of indistinguishable ordeals, measured only by the movements of the sun through the high temple windows. You live by routines imposed from above. Awaken at dawn, cleanse your body, kneel before the altar, perform the tasks set by the priests. Your world contracts to stone walls and silent meals. You find yourself speaking less, even to the other children. Conversation is dangerous. Every whispered word may be overheard by a watching priestess or a boy desperate for favor. The other children's faces are changing. Some bear new scars, thin white lines on their backs or arms, evidence of punishments for disobedience or hesitation during prayer. A girl named Duri was once known for her laughter. Now she rocks herself silently in the corner, her temple mark inflamed and festering. No one offers comfort. You learn to avoid eye contact, to walk quickly, to keep your head bowed. Survival depends on invisibility. The weeks pass, and one by one, some children disappear. Sometimes you wake to find an empty cot. Sometimes a priest enters at midnight, calling a name in a low, cold voice. You know better than to ask where they have gone. The word in the dormitory is that those who fail to please are sent to serve in the fields. But you've seen enough to sense the truth. Some are sold to distant temples as offerings, others exiled. A few, whispers say, never seen again. The threat of punishment is not an idle one. One evening, after a boy named Namar fails to recite a hymn correctly, the priests gather the entire dormitory. In front of everyone, Namar is made to kneel. The high priestess recites from a clay tablet, "He who disrupts the rites of Ishtar shall be marked and exiled." The mark is a deep cut, made with a bronze blade and left to scar. The city's scribe records the punishment, adding Namar's name to the list of the shamed. The next morning, he is gone. But this is where the horror grows systematic. The temple is not only a place of ritual, but a marketplace. On festival days, foreign envoys arrive bearing gifts, lapis, gold, casks of wine, and leave with blessed servants selected from among the temple's children. The priests smile, exchange contracts, and the city celebrates another alliance sealed by the flesh of its young. Cuneiform records from Mari and Ur confirm these transactions. Children bartered as tokens of goodwill, their names replaced by tallies in dusty ledgers. You hear the words offering and blessing so often they lose all meaning. The elders insist the gods demand these sacrifices, that the city's harvests and rivers depend on your obedience. During the annual festival of Ishtar, You are paraded with the others through crowded streets, wearing new robes and garlands, your mark visible for all to see. Adults cheer, throw coins, chant blessings, while you walk, numb, reciting the prayers drilled into you until your voice is raw. The most honored children, the chosen, with perfect marks of submission, are offered permanent places in the temple's inner sanctum. Their hair is shorn, their old names erased. You watch as the priests lead them away, their faces blank as tablets, waiting to be inscribed. The fate of the Nadatu and Kadishtu is no secret. You have seen them, older girls and boys who never leave the cloister, eyes distant, voices brittle, serving in rituals that demand far more than prayer. Archaeological evidence from Sippar and Babylon records these priestesses as both religious leaders and temple slaves, denied families, freedom, and the right to ever return home. But the true horror is how the city sanctifies this suffering. The annual cycle continues, undisturbed. Each spring, more children are brought in, marked, tested, and, if they survive, fed to the machinery of the temple. Families who offer the most children are honored with feasts and tokens from the priesthood. Those who question the tradition are branded as traitors or accused of angering the gods. The law is merciless. The Code of Hammurabi prescribes exile or death for families who hide their children from temple service. Resistance is a crime against the city. You begin to understand that your survival depends on complicity. You recite the prayers, perform the tasks, and pretend not to see when a child is led away at night. Even when you dream, the faces of those who vanished return to haunt you. Tilu, Duri, Namar, their names echo in your mind, warnings of what happens to the disobedient. One night, lying on your stone cot, you overhear the priests discussing the next offering. The voices are matter-of-fact, cold. The king's envoy arrives tomorrow. We will give him 3 from the low courts and 1 from the sanctum. You press your hands to your ears, wishing you could block out the words. But you cannot unhear them. You cannot unknow what you have become a part of. But here's where you realize the final cost. Every child who remains is changed. The ones who adapt most quickly, who learn to smile on command, to accept pain without flinching, to repeat the words of the priests, are rewarded with scraps of comfort. Extra food, a softer mat, praise from the elders. You envy them, even as you hate what they have become. Sometimes, in the quiet before dawn, you catch yourself whispering the prayers, promising yourself you will be among the chosen. It is the only way to survive. The rituals are never just about you. Each ordeal is a performance for the gods, the city, your family, and, most cruelly, your own future self. Every sacrifice, every loss, every humiliation is wrapped in words of sanctity. You're told to be proud. You are told you have brought honor. But the truth is simpler and colder. You have been broken, reshaped, made useful. As the festival ends and the crowds disperse, you watch the priests sweep away the offerings, the garlands, the last crumbs of the feast. The temple is quiet again. Somewhere, in the deepest chamber, a new child is being prepared. You know now that your suffering is not an exception. It is the rule. The city thrives on your pain. The gods are silent. And the only record of your ordeal will be a name in a ledger, a scar on your arm, and a memory you will spend your whole life trying to escape. Years pass, but the memory of that first night never leaves you. The stone corridors of the temple become familiar, their echoes as constant as your own heartbeat. You are no longer the trembling child who entered under the gaze of priests and gods. Now your steps are measured, your voice steady when you recite the daily prayers. The city outside the ziggurat grows, seasons turn, and the cycle of sacrifice continues. But nothing in Babylon truly changes, except the faces of the children pressed into the old machinery. Sometimes you are chosen to assist with new initiates. The ritual is always the same. Trembling feet on the reed mat, incense curling in the air, eyes wide with terror as the priestess binds a cord and marks soft skin with a stylus. You see yourself reflected in their panic, their desperate glances at the door. You remember the pain, the humiliation, the loneliness. But now you are on the other side, instructed to recite the prayers in a calm voice, to hold a struggling arm still while the ritual tattoo burns red. Each new child is a living mirror, reminding you what the city once took from you. But here's where it gets worse. The cycle is relentless. Every year, more children arrive. Some are from poor families, offered in hopes of favor or a better harvest. Others are children of debtors, handed over by fathers who owe grain to the temple. The priests record each arrival on clay tablets, the ledgers swelling with names. In the spring, a feast. In the fall, another round of offerings. Archaeological evidence from Sippar and Uruk confirms it. Cuneiform tablets listing quotas. So many children from such and such a district, as if children are simply grain, to be weighed and stored. You watch as some of your peers vanish into the inner sanctum. A few become priestesses, pale and silent, their hair always covered, their eyes never meeting yours. Others disappear altogether, names scratched out in the dormitory records. When you ask what happened, the answer is always the same. They have been chosen. The fate of the Nadatu, the cloistered priestesses, is known only to the highest elders. Some say they never see daylight again, their voices lost in endless prayers and rituals behind the thickest temple walls. But not all survivors become priests or disappear. Some, like you, are left to drift between duties, cleaning altars, sweeping corridors, reciting hymns during festivals. The city regards you with a kind of distant reverence. Children marked by the gods, but never truly part of any family or community again. The festivals that once terrified you now pass by in a haze. You watch, numb, as new children are forced to kneel, to endure, to surrender. Over time, you witness something more chilling than the rituals themselves. The survivors are changed, some harder, some colder, a few broken completely. There are those who, after years of service, are given minor positions in the temple bureaucracy. They become assistants, scribes, even minor priests, and some enforce the same rituals they once endured. You hear the same prayers, the same warnings, spoken in voices that once trembled and now command. The abused become the abusers. The machinery runs on the fuel of its own victims. But here's the twist that haunts you. Some run, but most never escape. A few children flee into the city, their temple marks hidden under rags. But Babylon is no place for the marked. The law is clear. Anyone who shelters a runaway from the temple faces death or banishment. Even if you made it to another city, the stylus scars on your arm betray your origins. The temple's reach is long, its networks deep. Babylon's justice is pitiless. And so is the memory that follows you wherever you go. You see the city's hypocrisy with clear eyes now. During the great festivals, when Ishtar's procession winds through the streets, when the king himself bows before the temple gates, everyone celebrates the purity and devotion of the temple's children. No one mentions the pain, the scars, the fear. The ledgers that record your name say nothing about the sleepless nights, the whispered prayers for rescue that were never answered. You begin to see the long shadow cast by the rituals. The city's elders defend them as ancient tradition, the way of the ancestors. But beneath the hymns and incense, you know the truth. The system is self-perpetuating. Each generation of broken children grows up to enforce the order, to repeat the cycle, to erase the evidence of suffering with rituals and feasts. Archaeologists digging in the ruins will one day find only clay tablets, lists of names and dates, never the voices that cried out in the night. But what chills you most is the realization that this cycle has no end. The temple's power endures through conquest, through famine, through the rise and fall of kings. New rulers may arrive, Akkadians, Persians, Greeks, but the machinery adapts, absorbs their customs, incorporates their gods. The suffering persists, sanctified and justified, always hidden behind the walls. One night, as you prepare for the spring festival, you are told to help with the new children. Another generation, another round of suffering. You hear one whisper, "Will it ever end?" You have no answer. You wonder if, decades from now, you will see yourself reflected in the eyes of a stranger, a survivor marked by the old rituals, haunted by the same memories. You wonder if anyone will ever break the chain. As the sun rises, you gather the children and lead them through the narrow temple corridors. The city outside is waking, unaware of the shadows moving within its sacred walls. You walk forward, bearing the weight of all that has come before, and all that will come again. And in that moment, you know, the true legacy of Babylon is not its walls or towers, but the unbroken line of suffering, passed from child to child, voice to voice, memory to memory, forever. It is the night of another spring festival, the city alive with torches and drums. The temple's shadows stretch across the square, reaching toward the revelers, who drink, sing, and praise the gods for the promise of new grain. You stand at the threshold of the ziggurat, older now, your temple mark faded, but never forgotten. The world beyond the walls seems unchanged, but you know better. Inside, the cycle continues. Children entering, the old rites repeating, pain and obedience measured out in equal shares. Tonight, you are summoned to the innermost chamber, the place reserved for priestly families and the keepers of the city's darkest secrets. The door closes behind you with a sound that is almost final. The high priest, older, heavier, yet as sharp-eyed as ever, gestures for you to kneel. On a low table rests a lacquered box, ancient and covered with seals. He breaks the seals one by one, careful, reverent, and draws out the implements of the ritual, the wooden rod, the stylus, the sacred cord. These are the same objects that touched your skin years ago. He holds them as a priest once did before you, and you sense that nothing ever truly leaves the temple's grasp. But here is where the nightmare becomes legacy. The priest recites a genealogy, his family, your family, all the priestly houses, that have guarded these tools for centuries. Some are descendants of Akkadian or Persian conquerors. Others trace their bloodline to the founding priests of Uruk and Babylon. Each has learned the rites, memorized the chants, kept the machinery alive. You are shown tablets older than empires, their cuneiform inscriptions worn but legible, detailing the correct order of pain, the words to speak, the sacrifices to be demanded. You realize that this system was never only about gods or kings. It is a tradition defended by those whose power depends on its survival. You look around the room and see the faces of the other keepers, men and women who once knelt as you did, whose scars hide beneath ceremonial robes. They guard the secrets with a devotion that is almost fearful. No one speaks of abolition. No one dares imagine the rites could end. To question is to betray your ancestors, your city, your gods. What you feel is not pride, but resignation. The city has outlasted famine, invasion, fire, and plague, its oldest laws written on the bodies of its children. But here's where it grows, still more chilling. Conquest changes everything except the ritual. When the Persians arrive, their priests learn from yours. When the Greeks come, their scribes copy your tablets, translate your hymns, praise the endurance of Babylon's ways. Even the Romans, who bring new gods and laws, see value in the old machinery, absorbing its darkness into their own imperial cults. The words change, the faces change, but the breaking of children, the temple's shadow, these persist, cloaked as wisdom, relabeled as sacred duty. You sense that the world outside suspects little or nothing. Foreign traders gossip about exotic Babylonian customs. Travelers record their shock at the annual offerings, but the city's core remains inviolate. Even after the last king falls, when Babylon becomes a memory whispered in the palaces of distant empires, the rituals echo on. In every city built on the bones of the old, Seleucia, Ctesiphon, even far-off Alexandria, priests and rulers invoke the way of the ancestors, resurrecting the old machinery wherever power must be proven, obedience must be learned. Now, in this final hour, you realize the most horrifying truth. The city's system has outlived every generation it ever devoured. The rites remain, shrouded in secrecy, their implements passed from hand to trembling hand, generation after generation. Some speak of reform, a few dare to resist, but the weight of centuries, the threat of exile or death, silences most. You have become both a survivor and a custodian of suffering, a witness to pain so old it has become invisible. The festival ends with fire and music. In the alleys, children dance, the city alive with hope. But inside the temple, another line of children is being led into the shadows, their eyes wide, their hands shaking, the cycle beginning anew. You have seen the machinery up close. You have survived, but survival has its own price. The horrors you endured have shaped every word, every silence, every scar. Yet the city celebrates its traditions, and the gods remain silent, and the ledgers keep growing. But now, as the echoes of the ceremony fade, you are left alone with your thoughts. You understand that the true legacy of Babylon is not the bricks of its walls or the height of its towers, but the unbroken chain of ritualized suffering passed from hand to hand, voice to voice, for 1,000 years. What remains is the memory, the taste of incense, the sting of the rod, the silence of the gods, the knowledge that this was not the story told in hymns and epics. This is the history that survives only in scars and shadows, in the hearts of those who lived through it, and in the secrets that will never make it to the clay tablets in the library. You entered the temple as a child. You leave, if you ever truly leave, as something else. The rites continue. The city survives. And the cost is written in the lives of those who were never allowed to choose. You came into this story thinking the ancient world was mysterious, maybe wise, perhaps even beautiful in its traditions. Now you know what Babylon really demanded: obedience, pain, and silence passed down like a curse. If this journey has awakened your need to see the truths that history tried to bury, subscribe now. Here, you'll witness the realities that shaped civilizations and the voices that textbooks left behind. The next revelation is waiting, and the shadows of the past are never as far away as you think.